No, sort of. Anyway, I've got some fun guests this evening. I think they'll be fun. Thomas Brinkley and Christian. Actually, I don't even know Christian's last name. I'm just calling him Christian P. And you are anyway. They're going to be talking about the Aurora shooting, and they've done some very interesting research. So I kind of tracked them down and asked them to come on the show. We were supposed to have them on the show a couple weeks ago, I think, and somehow the wires got crossed or whatever. I think I was traveling again. I don't remember. But I'm very happy that we could break through and get them on the show tonight. So that was very lovely of them to step forward and be willing to kind of be good sports and come on right now. So they haven't had a lot of preparation for the show, but that shouldn't be a problem. At any rate, let's see. Thomas, why don't you start off and give something of your background, how you got into the story, and then if Christian could do the same.
Well, I'm actually just a YouTube personality, and I happened to be awake at that time. It was 4 a.m. my time when the shooting occurred, and I more or less just immediately started questioning, from a conspiracy theorist perspective, whether it was a false flag attack, and I put out a video, and then using that video, I was able to use annotations and thumbnails to break the news on that was being missed by the mainstream with regard to some of the anomalies of the shooting. And so I think one of my most popular videos got up to about 40,000 views, and I was able to just sort of really maintain a nice perspective on the alternative theories, and that's how I met Christian. Actually, he was somebody who was helping me out.
Okay, yeah. Christian, you wanna speak up?
Yeah. I'm Historical Records Vault on YouTube. If you've been looking into the Aurora stuff at all, you've probably seen my videos. I kind of just, right off the bat, it just looked really weird to me, and the way they were hyping it up so much, and it was just taking up all the time on the news 24/7. I just looked into it, and then came across, like, Thomas had his video out there. He was, like, one of the first people who had anything, and I was, like, looking on YouTube trying to find stuff, and I saw his, and it really got me thinking. It gave me a lot of ideas as far as looking into that, and it just kind of spiraled from there, and I started I have another YouTube channel, Chris Kills 503, and I was doing some stuff on there, and then I started up the Historical Records Vault to get, like, a sort of a database of really key clips, video clips, and then I just kind of went from there and just kept looking into it ridiculously, and then...
Yeah. I mean, pretty much we've been able to stay within the community of people that have been researching and independently investigating it, and so we know about all the anomalies. In fact, we're hoping on the show to be able to tell you about some of the things that went completely underreported and probably won't be reported because of the gag order that they put in place just a few days after the shooting. So,
right. Well, let's happy to go down those roads, and I'm real excited to have you guys on the show, and I really value good research, and I think it's coming from the right place with you two, and so I want to thank you. I just noticed that on Huffington Post one day ago, apparently they posted that the judge says the prosecutors can have access to some of the university records of James Holmes. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's sort of bogus or what's going to go on with that. I don't know if you've seen that article or what you might think of it, but happy to listen to your thoughts on that.
Yes, a lot of the things that they're coming up with and they're focusing on now is pretty much everything that we wouldn't be able to put our hands on. Not even no witness testimonies coming in behind it with regard to the actual shooting. Some of it has to do with like a notebook, which supposedly has incriminating material suggesting that Holmes was going to commit a violent act, and what was it, Christian? Like a letter he sent that there were stick figures drawn of him shooting people And so it's just it's strange to see them focusing on that rather than witness testimonies saying we saw red hair sticking out the back of the helmet. Nobody said anything like that. And so one of the things that somebody actually went to one of the hearings and they were talking about a handprint, for instance, on the back door, and this handprint was actually going to be, they're going to try to pin the shooting on him because they supposedly did the impression. They took a look at the handprint and they're going to try to pattern match it to his hand. So that's just an example of how they're really kind of trying to incriminate him with things that I feel like they could easily fabricate if they if this is in fact a conspiracy, and we're almost certain that it is.
Yeah, absolutely. I can tell you right off the bat, I have some back channel information on this whole story that links it to the Sikh shootings as well as some interesting,
Really?
a death of a neuroscientist, or actually not the death of it, but a neuroscientist who was arrested several times, who was giving a presentation on neuroscience over the border. I know it sounds unrelated, but it actually is connected. Very interesting trajectory in terms of an Illuminati sort of plot and triangulating various things. So it goes beyond Aurora, but there are links in all certain strange directions, and we can go down that road as you guys progress. Why don't you kind of start out with what you have to offer, and let's go forward with that.
Yes, definitely, and I'm going to let Christian chime in too. Basically, the biggest, you could say the World Trade Center 7, the Building 7, the anomaly of the explosive device that went off in a theater that James Holmes was not even in. So just discounting the reports of a gas can not even coming from his location, and the person opening up the door with a goatee. There was actually an explosive device that seems to have gone off in the adjacent theater, in Theater 8, and it actually caused shrapnel injury to, and that's what the official, like the doctors actually said, that these are shrapnel wounds to a gentleman named Gage Hankins. And Gage Hankins, not only that, but he felt heat from the explosive gases. We looked into this, and apparently gas cans, when they explode, can also cause burns because the compressed gases are very hot during the explosion. And his friend sitting next to him actually felt heat on her leg. So something happened which caused a gas can to go off in 8. And I'll go ahead and let Christian take it from there.
Yeah, so basically the everybody in 8, well, the whole reason I started looking into 8 so much was because I could tell something on the news. I was watching ABC News, and at first they were admitting that a few people got hurt in there, but then I noticed a couple days later they started saying only one person in Theater 8 was shot. And I could kind of like detect a little bit of a weakness there in their story. Like I could tell they were trying to cover something up about Theater 8. I could just tell. And so you separate all the Theater 8. What happened was when the testimonies first came in on the first day, no one really knew. They kind of got 8 and 9 mixed together, and you'd see someone from Theater 8, but you would assume that they were just in Theater 9 from what they were explaining. And after a while, it just started getting ridiculous because I was just like, man, this wasn't just from shots. Even if the bullets went through the wall, you wouldn't be seeing what looked. I mean, it's so obvious. Basically, everybody in there saw like a firework go off. They saw like 2 or 3 different fireworks go off in Theater 8, what they thought a firework, which would be like a flash. If you look up a flashbang grenade on YouTube, you come up with it's like a firework. It pops, it makes a flash, and then a big poof of smoke comes off, and it gives off a little bit of shrapnel. So when you listen to everybody in Theater 8, inside Theater 8, the movie was actually playing. It was in the middle of a shootout scene in Theater 8. So it was really loud, and then everybody saw what looked like a firecracker. It popped. Gage Hankins' teacher, Steve Ostergaard, said that all 11 people they were with saw a flash. So they saw a flash, and they heard a really loud pop that was even over the movie. It was louder than the sound of the movie. It was a really distinct, but only 2 pops. You don't hear him say, if you listen to Rachel Fideli, she says no one in Theater 8 knew what was going on next door in Theater 9.
No.
They
Exactly.
couldn't hear shots. Most of the people in Theater 8, they didn't hear shots from next door from Theater 9. So they heard what was a distinctive pops. They saw a flash. They saw a smoke. And then the people right next to it got shrapnel.
And so the reason that this is so important is that the official story does not have James Holmes coming out of that theater, going into 8 to be able to throw those gas cans. He was arrested literally within a minute, I think it was a minute to a minute and a half, he was arrested in the back of the theater. And so for him to have actually, say, gone out into the lobby.
1 second. Hold on 1 second. I thought he was found in his car unconscious.
That's not the official story, but that is definitely what we're thinking happened to this guy, that he was actually,
Oh my God. I didn't know
that was implied,
Yeah, because, well, there's a few things to suggest that, there's the window that's busted out in the car.
The mug shot, the Vicodin thing. The Vicodin story was something they made up just so, the cops and the people in the jail didn't start wondering too much, because I think they wondered why he was so drugged up when he came in there, but then they came out with that Vicodin thing, he said he was high on 100 milligrams of Vicodin, and that's why he was no mug shot the first night too. Couldn't stand up.
Yeah. And then he was actually wheelchaired into jail, and I think I'm trying to remember, it was the New York Daily that actually wrote an article. Somebody had contacted their relative who was in the jail, and then this relative said, they brought him in a wheelchair, they had a towel over his face, and that little sentence, that little quote, was actually removed the next day from the New York Daily, and it was just somebody who was blogging at the time, and they wrote it, they quoted it, and we were able to look using Google Cache to check and see, yes, in fact, they removed that quote, which said he was being wheelchaired in. So if he was being wheelchaired in, that's just more that's more to suggest that he was found unconscious. But
right. Well, can we get back to the 8? Because I was just curious. I hadn't heard. I don't know why, but I didn't hear there was other people in a theater next door that got hit.
Yeah. Actually, there's a few people that got hit. We don't know all the stories. We would love. I know that there's at least 400 people in each of those 2 theaters. So that's tons of people that we would like to be able to talk to. In fact, some people told the officers. I think in the what do they call that? The scanner audio. You actually have an officer saying, "I'm getting conflicting witness testimonies as to who the shooter is." Apparently, somebody stood up, or one of the shooters was seated and stood up. What gave them that impression, I don't know, but maybe it has to do with these gas cans that went off in there. But they were pushing that story that there were bullets going through the walls, and that's because, and we have a rough idea of why they did this, but they threw those gas cans, those flashbangs, into Theater 8, and the only thing that we've been able to come up with is that an entire football team had gone into Theater 8, and maybe they had not expected or not known how to deal with that, and so the way that they thought that they would do it is to startle everyone by throwing in those I guess they either flashbangs or smoke grenades. In fact, Rachel Fideli tweeted after the shooting and said they threw gas cans in our theater. We were in it. And so that's just very strange. So everyone had this general idea that there was more than one shooter, and I'm sure that's why we're not hearing very many witness testimonies coming out of there. But
what do you mean when you say a football team? What do you mean by that?
What I meant was that perhaps they were thinking we don't want the football team to get.
It's because Zach Goldich said that he was there. There's a football player kid that's 6'3" and 240 pounds, and he got hit in the back of the neck. He said it sounded like he got hit in the back of the head with a firecracker, is what he said. And he said he was there with a group of 30 friends, so they were probably, most of them were probably big football players like him.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
he ran because they could have ran in there and stopped the shooter if they knew what was going on.
Yeah, and so that may have concerned them enough to want, because they blocked them in 8. Yeah, they didn't get out of 8 until they figured out how to get out the top. So what happened
But
that,
let me ask you, I mean, I want you to finish your sentence, but I also want to know, if somebody threw canisters at 8, how did they do that? I mean, if they're busy in 9, there had to be another person. So didn't anyone in 8 even identify what the person throwing canisters looked like? Didn't anybody see him?
actually, they were probably just watching the movie so intently that they weren't able to. And if anyone did, we're probably not going to get those witness testimonies. Like, for instance, the person who was it that said there was one of the shooters was seated in 8. You know, what did that person see that gave them that impression that that was one of the shooters? And then we all, wearing a blue and white plaid shirt. That was another thing that somebody said was one of the suspects. But ultimately, those gas cans were probably either dropped there, and then the person walked away, or they were tossed in. But the point being is that after it happened, doors were blocked by people in the theater, and one person actually claiming that the cops barricaded the lobby entrance. So the goal, I think, was to try to contain. I know that sounds strange, but to try to contain that football team in there. But because that's the only reason I could think that they would do something so risky as throw flashbangs and startle people in there and have some justification for blocking them in. But they blocked them from the lobby exit, and they blocked them from.
That's really interesting. Yeah, right.
But sure did muddy the waters too.
Has nobody tried to reach one of the football players?
I've actually tried to reach some of the witnesses, specifically the one that was so close to the shooter that he saw that the person that opened up the door had the goatee, and that's Corbin Dates. And the problem, there's two problems. Number one, I can't seem to be able to get through to anyone. Number two, I don't think they'll be able to talk because of the gag order, and so. Even if I were to say that I got a hold of one of them, I would have been required to act like I didn't, So it's this gag order thing is just like really convenient for a cover up, and it's unfortunate. Some people have actually tried to make contact with some of the people that I think they were Red Robin employees. A lot of the people that were there were Red Robin employees, and so after asking the manager, can we speak to them, basically the manager was like, no, they're not allowed to say anything. So it's very interesting.
Okay, well, how long are they not allowed to say anything?
They're scheduled to testify at the trial. They can't speak. But the thing about the gas canister, about the one that hit Gage Hankins, is we're thinking that maybe the guy was sitting right behind Gage, and he just set it down under the chair in front of him, like he just barely said it. And that's when it just went off like that, because the cop did an hour and a half later. The cop was like, "Yeah, I've been talking to a lot of the witnesses out here, and he said it sounds like he had one guy in Theater 8 seated, one guy in Theater 9, the shooter, and it sounds like a coordinated attack. Like he basically talked to multiple witnesses that led him to believe that it was a coordinated attack. So maybe someone saw something, but maybe it was only one or two people that saw it. I don't know.
Yeah. I know, but you just said that they have a gag order if they're scheduled to testify. Well, I assume that those football players are probably not scheduled to testify, which means they're not under a gag order, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm not sure, because I don't know how that works with the witnesses, because they've still done some interviews with witnesses since then. So I'm not exactly.
Too bad you couldn't get somebody on the ground there to go to the school where the football players, play football,
Yeah.
and basically get a whole group of them, because I bet, they're not even scheduled to testify. If some of those people, being the kind of action guys they are, you know what I'm saying? They might be a little more astute at picking up what happened out of the corner of their eye, kind of.
Well, they were actually seated towards the front. It would be interesting. They would know things like who it was that was telling them, don't go out the door, That would be interesting. We actually, I think from interviews know who that is, but still to be able to corroborate or to cross-reference the interviews that we're getting off of ABC with them, because the person, actually I think it's generally a bad idea to talk about the witnesses being potential suspects, because then it's difficult to actually talk about that publicly. But it would be interesting. I wish we did have boots on the ground over there, because ultimately there are plenty of things. Like, could you imagine the people, like the gas cans actually had smoke trails coming behind them, so there would have been no question where the origin of these things were coming from in Theater 9. And so the one interview that we do have talking about it says that one of the gas cans came from, quote-unquote, behind, which he actually described it from the middle light. So if you could imagine lights going down the side of the wall, it, instead of coming from over there at the far corner at the emergency exit where the shooter was, it actually came from the middle light. They must have not realized that the smoke trail would have been noticed by people. And
they threw it up and over the handrail right there, probably. Yeah. And that's corroborated by a lot of witnesses, like Corbin Dates. He says he saw the shooter throw one can. Like, you'll see a lot of people from Theater 9, they'll say, I saw the shooter throw one can, and they won't even mention the other gas can. And Corbin Dates said he physically saw him throw one can, but then he says another device went off behind me, but I didn't see where that came from. So he didn't say it wasn't him, but he basically kind of said, like, I didn't see him throw. I don't know how that got behind me.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, there's a couple things I want to run down. I don't know if we're going to go to a break pretty soon or anything, but somebody is also writing in here that the main nurse that treated some of the victims, and everyone knows this, is now dead. She was said to have drowned while swimming in a lake near her home in the early morning.
Yeah, I think her name was Amanda Geller or Amanda Gallagher.
This is Kerry Cassidy, Project Camelot, Whistleblower Radio. We're talking to Thomas Brinkley and Christian P., and they are going through the Aurora shooting, some of the details that people are possibly overlooking, and we're just kind of basically trying to go down this road. We have several discussion points to cover. And actually, I want to ask you, Thomas Brinkley, weren't you the one that created sort of a model of where everyone would be and the sort of the way the theater looked and everything, the placement of the doors, all that sort of thing?
Yes, I am, Kerry. Basically, somebody found, these certain videos keep popping up from witnesses, and this one was we call her the bat shirt girl, because she's a girl that's wearing a bat shirt, and she was actually an employee, and she was being very descriptive of the way the theater looks from the inside, and using that and some pictures that were found online of the theater, and in fact I think a gentleman named or that calls himself Willie Loman, but his real name I think is Scott Creighton, basically apparently got a hold of one of the managers of the theater, who was able to corroborate and say, yes, this is a picture of Theater 9, and yes, this is a picture of Theater 8. And using that, I was able to create a 3D model. And the most important thing I was able to notice was the way that the exit doors work. And basically, when one of the first reports was that he kicked in the exit door, it turns out that that's actually possible, because that door would swing inwards, because it leads to a fire exit hallway, which immediately heads outside. However, because it's a fire exit hallway, it wouldn't be able to open into the hallway, because it would violate the fire code. So that's really important, because that suggests that here you have a self-shutting, inward opening door, which more than likely nobody chose as an exit strategy when people were running out. So that kind of leaks into the crime scene, which is occurring behind the theater. There's I think anyone who would have noticed the flybys of the theater would have noticed a very distinct blood trail behind the movie theater, which begins about probably about like halfway, like where the theater would have began, and then leads back into the exit door. So the trail, the spatter pattern, is actually heading from down the sidewalk into the theater. And the question is why? Why would somebody be bleeding heading into the crime scene and also heading to where James Holmes allegedly was arrested at his car? You know, why would the Vic be heading towards the towards that location? Why would they be running away? And so that's just some of the anomalies that are present.
Yeah, so that I guess now that I recall is that the trail of blood towards the car was why there was people that was another piece of evidence saying there was something going on with regard to him being at the car, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Essentially, the strange thing there is that it puts the shooter somewhere other than at the car. And when I think, Christian, you know about the timing of when Oates said they arrested the shooter. Do you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, I think first press conference, I think it was the second one, the Friday afternoon press conference, one of the reporters asked him what the timeline was for the arrest, and he said that the first 911 call went out at 12:39, and he said officers were there within 60 to 90 seconds, and then they immediately took him into custody. The second they got there, they found him outside, is what he said. So he said that they arrested him at 12:40 a.m., and then that's what the booking report says, too. When you go to the booking report document, it says 0040 hours, which is 12:40. So, yeah, that gives you a pretty strict timeline as far as, like, the whole attack had to take pretty much under 2 minutes, which really leads to the additional suspect thing, because you just saw him in too many places in the theater, and there just wasn't enough time to be all...
No shit. That's crazy. Okay. Well, to get back to the theater and the sort of model that you built, let me, because I want people to understand, one of the reasons I invited you on the show is also because you were getting some kind of threats because of the model you built. Isn't that right?
It wasn't actually that. I knew that we were progressing and we were sort of making a name for ourselves in the community. I'm saying ourselves, but I'm really talking about myself. And, basically we were finding out that there were some high profile, ex-convicts basically who were getting involved, like actually getting involved with the conspiracy theory. These are arising out of Facebook groups, which have actually been mentioned in hearings as being problematic. I think basically one of the individuals filed some fake motions in the name of one person, Yampio Lee, which was supposedly a friend of James Holmes, and also Allison Michelle Ernst. Both of these individuals were trying to testify on James's innocence for whatever reason, and we don't know, because they were immediately hushed up and smeared. Allison Michelle Ernst was played off like a crazy person, and Yampio Lee was actually I think detained and questioned, but ultimately these fraudulent motions came in under their name, and it was basically being filed by supposedly somebody online who was actually used to be an FBI. He actually used to work for the FBI, and I'm pretty sure about that. I'm not 100% sure, but would help them understand how to. He actually had like a segment on CNN, how he would file or identity theft. That's what it's called, identity theft. And so I started becoming concerned because it just seemed I didn't like being on the opposite side of a fence of individuals who had a criminal history, and so I just said I saw some strange sort of behavior coming from there, and I immediately just said, hey, I'm getting concerned for my safety, kind of like I want to be able to do what I do, but not step on any toes that I feel like are operations in themselves, So I didn't want to.
Well, I don't know. It sort of you're making it sound like this person might have been used as an asset to further obscure. You said these people were in theory friends who wanted to give, testimony, right?
Yeah. I mean, essentially, Jan Paoli and Allison Michelle Ernst. Jan Paoli's connection is interesting, specifically because when they went to pick him up, neighbors said that he lived with this woman who would always come out wearing suits. This is what I think it was KDVR that did this interview, and that basically on that day or on that evening before the shooting, the woman came out dressed in a construction outfit, and but this is interesting because there was actually construction going on at Sable Boulevard right there behind the theater. And so there was a construction crew that actually, Zach Goldich, the person that we were talking about that had the injury from a likely explosive device in Theater 8, basically, one of the construction workers gave him first aid and said, yeah, I used to be an Army medic, So it's just, very, very odd, very strange. What was that construction crew doing there? It was like happenstance, like they were there late.
Right.
And, so was that, I'm not sure what it was. Was that just an intelligence agency running a parallel operation, kind of keeping an eye on it? In fact, one of the construction workers get involved in the scanner audio because one of the policemen said, yeah, one of the construction workers here told us that he saw a suspect running on foot with a black backpack. So I find that very strange that the construction worker would have got involved, So
right. And what time in the evening was this?
It was like I think it was 7 p.m. or so that she came out with the construction worker outfit on. So
what I mean is, what time was the constructions? You said the construction workers were working there.
Yeah, they were working there. They were there at midnight, right there at the crime scene, essentially when the crime scene occurred. I mean,
night. This is at midnight?
Yeah. So
well, that doesn't make any sense at all. Nobody, no construction people. I mean, everyone knows construction people quit right on the dot at 5 o'clock.
Sometimes they do work overnight, but it actually specifically said in the article that they had to work late. So that is happened. I mean, that is a coincidence that should. And I tried to contact them, but they never contacted me back. There's multiple things I try to contact, and it's just dead ends, very frustrating. So, but Allison Michelle Ernst. So that was Jan Paoli's connection. Allison Michelle Ernst is actually somebody who apparently shaved off her head for I don't know what reason, and I don't want to get this wrong, but basically, her husband may have, just from rumors, and I don't know, but may have a connection to Anschutz. Allison Michelle Ernst and her husband are actually very they seem to be sort of like in the upper class of Denver, of Colorado, being involved in it appears like the gym community and things like that. So, essentially, I don't know how, but there may be a connection between her husband and Anschutz, and then that connection led her to figure out maybe what was happening, because Anschutz is this, I guess he's a multi-billionaire individual, who is very politically linked to everything that goes on in Denver. So, in Colorado.
I guess I'm not understanding how does that link to the person who shaved their head?
It's possible, and this is just my theory, that she may have actually put two and two together after the shooting went down, from what her husband told her. This is just all speculation. I tried to find a connection, but I'm unable to establish it. But for some reason, she's a very beautiful woman. She shaved her head off, went to the hearing, and then as the hearing began, she stood up and tried to present evidence suggesting that James Holmes was innocent to James's state-provided defense, and she was immediately slandered by the media as having said some very strange things about like seeing an aura of light around him, and so
And is she under gag order at this time, do you think?
I don't know what the specifics are, but it frightens me to, because she looked very well put together. So for her not to be able to have leaked that information, whatever it was that she was trying to give out, assuming it was legitimate, they must have it really on lock over there, the cover-up situation.
Well, it sounds like maybe she was also being programmed in some weird way to shave her head to make herself look more bizarre or less trustworthy right before she testified. That's very suspect.
Yeah, that is suspect. It's also possible that she just did it in anger. Like, I know a couple of girls that have shaved their heads because their husbands did something that they hated or something like that. And that's what I thought was maybe. Yeah,
but she's not married to James Holmes. She's married to some other guy, right?
Right, and this other guy may have been connected to the people that knew what was going on. I'm sure that. Yeah.
Well, it's too bad we couldn't get to her as well. If anybody gets in touch with her who's listening to the show, I'd be happy to have her on my show to talk about this. Really, there's so many questionable aspects to the story. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah. Some more anomalies. Do you want to chime in, Christian, with anything you want to talk about?
Let's see. The
blood talk about the scanner.
You know what I want to talk about?
Yeah.
I want to talk about the gas mask pictures with that object that disappears out of the photos.
Yeah.
There's a picture of there was a gas mask found on the corner, and then there was a gas mask found over by the dumpster with the rest of his gear, which is weird. If you look at the vest there on the ground, it doesn't look to be Chief Oates. They asked him twice at the press conference what kind of gear the shooter had on, and Oates said for sure it was like an army-style ballistic vest with pockets that you could put stuff into, like the troops have. It's more of a heavy-duty, it's a really kind of a rigid vest. Like when you set it down, you can almost set it like on itself, and it'll just stand upright. But the vest you see over there by the dumpster is more of like the FBI kind of ones that just like Velcro on the front and back, and there's like two pieces, and they just kind of lay flat on the ground, like you can see it on the pictures. And back to the gas mask on the corner, there's a picture with the gas mask with like a piece of paper next to it or in the background, and there's like a little metal-looking object right there. It appears to be metal. I don't know for sure, but it is some sort of an object that is unidentified, and no one can explain what the object is. And then in different pictures, they go to this more cleaner-looking picture with just the gas mask, and suddenly that little thing disappears. And the thing is, it kind of looks on the paper like you see a little speck of red that kind of looks like blood, and then the knife, the way it's shaped, it possibly could be a folding knife laying there next to the gas mask.
Uh-huh. Okay.
And the significance there, like the Huffington Post pointed out this gas mask location, it said additional evidence over here too. And so when you look at the actual photos, yes, there is that metallic-looking object. Yes, there is some red on the paper that's covering it. Like they use pieces of paper to actually cover up certain things. I don't know why they did that, but so suggesting that there was blood on this object. And then then they actually started using this other photo to show the gas mask, and I'm just 100%. It has been photoshopped. It even says the URL on the photo, like during CNN, with the I think it was just showing it randomly, and it had a URL to a person named Carl Gehring. And Carl, when you go to the URL, it's somebody who's a Photoshop expert. It's like they're just absolutely admitting, like, hey, we're showing you a Photoshopped image here. And so, why they did that, I guess for just some security purposes. But the thing is that I made an analysis, and the image that looks photoshopped, it's an entirely different gas mask. There's no nozzle on the front, which is present on the other gas mask. There's actually like a white substance, some sort of stain on the front of the mask in the original one that's not there in the new one. So it's like they're really just it's a joke. I mean, they're actually definitely photoshopping an image and now using that instead of the original one. And why would they do that? Because it looks like there's some sort of a knife-like object right there, and why are they covering that up? You know?
Yeah, that's very good.
Yeah.
Okay, I got a question here in the chat. Somebody saying, why was the lady who was in Canada in 2 shootings? I think I heard about that, and that was ridiculous.
Oh, that must be what's her name?
Wasn't that the psychologist or something?
Jessica Redfield.
Jessica Redfield, Jessica Gawi. And that is very interesting. There's some anomalies there, and she was basically in a shooting. What was it, a month beforehand or something? Yeah, and basically, she was not there with her boyfriend. It was actually some other guy, and it's kind of sensitive, I think, to talk about the victims. It's hard, but what I want to say though is that that coincidence is very strange, and we have played with the idea of how could in other words, like I'm sorry. Go ahead, Christian.
Yeah, the boyfriend lives in Toronto or Montreal, one of those two, wherever the shooting was. That's why she was up there, and. Yeah, there was just a couple somewhat odd behavior surrounding that with like a couple people.
I think, yeah, exactly. The brother actually made Obama promise not to mention the name of the shooter, which I mean, I don't know. It just seems convenient from a cover-up point of view, but it could all just be legitimate. I'm not concerned about whether or not, for instance, she was in on it, or that the family didn't experience a legitimate death.
One thing I know is she was the first deceased victim that was identified, like that night. I think.
Oh yeah, because they weren't going to release any of the names of the individuals, but they told the brother right away or they actually called and said that she had passed away. So, like I said, I was playing with the idea of, did something go down at that other shooting, which they needed to, essentially blame her death on? I don't know. It's really tough to talk about that, but there are some anomalies with regard to her death at that theater.
I think that there were. I don't know what the story is. I haven't, had the time to go into it, but I remember looking at it a bit. The question I had, I believe, was whether or not she was actually targeted, and they missed her in one, and they got her in the other.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was sort of thinking, that the planning though for it, I don't know how the planning would fit in with that, because you did have witnesses in Theater 9 who said that it looked like the guy was targeting someone. He said that it looked to him like the shooter was targeting people. So they looking.
I don't know if you guys, because I've done other shows on this. I don't know if you heard them. The one I did with, I guess it was Nighthawk and this other guy that came on the show. Forget his name. Anyway, he said that there were people that were shot right between the eyes.
Wow.
Really? Yeah.
And you can't do that. You can't do that in a dark room without a scope and without being an expert shot. So, there's something going on with that.
Yeah, there was four of the victims that died were servicemen, and then.
Oh yeah.
And it was kind of weird how the Pentagon, they were saying that they had a guy missing that they knew was at the theater. Like the next day, the Pentagon was saying they didn't know where he was. And at first, too, the Pentagon said, I think they said 1 serviceman died. And then it comes out later in the news that 4 died. And it's like, you guys don't even keep track of your guys, or what, like, how did you not know that? And then the guys who died were like military intelligence. There was a cryptologist. There was,
Yeah, it's almost weird. Like, it's almost like they would be able to use this event for a blanket reason for certain people dying. And, not saying people didn't die. I would assume.
Welcome back, folks.
Hi there. This is Kerry Cassidy, Project Camelot Whistleblower Radio. I was just getting communication, so I was trying to juggle that. It's never a dull moment with Camelot, as you can appreciate. Very interesting. Anyway, let me see here. We've got, we might have some behind-the-scenes guests come in towards the end of the show. I don't know if that's actually going to fly or what's going to go on. So we're going to just see how that goes. But let's continue with this because this is very important. Let's see. Aurora Mayor Steve Hogan. Can you talk about that a little?
Yeah. The mayor of the town of Aurora, they were kind of trying to paint him as a loner and kind of crazy, but that whole thing didn't end up working out for him at all. Like, everyone they talked to about him just kind of said they didn't really have anything. I mean, one of the interviewers even asked his friend, like, did you ever see him torture little kitties or anything like that? And the guy was just laughing, like, no, he's totally not like that. But so anyways, the mayor, they asked him, like, hey, what's up with this guy? Do you know anything about him? And the mayor said, yeah, it's weird because he had drinking buddies that he went out on Friday nights to the bar with. He had friends. He had a girlfriend. And he said something is really seriously wrong here. And that's just a little clip. It's just interesting to see his take on it.
When he said something seriously wrong, what can you sort of figure out where he was going with that? Was he saying?
Well, he
wasn't saying something was wrong with James Holmes. He's saying something was wrong with the way they're trying to paint him in the media.
Yeah, he doesn't fit the profile of one of these mass killers. And you'd see behavior profilers on the interviews too, and they'd be like, yeah, we'll end up. This was like the first day they said, yeah, we'll end up looking into the guy's background, and they said guaranteed. They said guaranteed he will have a history of like violent, weird stuff, because every single time you have a serial killer or something like that, a person that snaps, it doesn't just happen all at once. It happens over time, and it just, lo and behold, months pass by and they still don't have anything. They don't have any examples of any sort of weird activities of.
Yeah. And then just look at ABC News reported, I guess they called his mother and said, is this her name? And she said, you have the right person. And what she meant was, yes, you're speaking to the person that you just asked if that's who you're talking to.
Yeah, I remember that, yes. So
that right there was, and then they just went wild with it, and she had to, and so that actually kind of showed, I think, that, he had an okay, family history with his family, and definitely.
Yeah, it was clear. I mean, you guys haven't gone down the road of I wrote a whole article about this. I don't even know if you saw it on my blog, but it's about what the father did. It's about the software, Fair Isaac.
Yeah,
There is a very substantial connection between Fair Isaac, its ability to profile people financially, and the fact that it's linked to revealing probably what's going on with the FICO, with the LIBOR scandal.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's actually very interesting. It's not an angle that we actually ended up pursuing because we were thrown off the track. I think they were trying to smear it as fake, but I'm starting to think that is actually true, that it may be involved. But one of the key things is that what James Holmes was involved in was activities related to DARPA. He went into the Salk Institute right out of high school, and he was in the speech that they're showing. He's coming right out of high school. He's actually describing how to increase reaction time. Using a certain technique, like he was actually programming things in Flash to be able to do it. So, what programs he was involved in, I don't know, but it did seem like there were some DARPA connections, not just in what he was doing, but maybe in his family as well.
Yeah, I actually found an article that had they quoted his uncle, and they said that he had the same name. And there is a James H. Holmes that is State Department ambassador to Turkey, and he's the head of the Turkish Council. So I think that's his uncle. And then you got the grandpa, who was CIA, obviously, in the Army language school doing the Turkish language. He was like one of the first people ever to go into that school. Like when they started the CIA in 1945 or whatever it was. Like his grandpa was like one of the first graduates from that school.
But you see, this is a very gifted family, is what you're showing, and the fact of the matter is that he was studying neuroscience. He was also, believe it or not, I don't know if you saw the information about this, but he was studying time travel. And I have a witness behind the scenes who is a remote viewer who is connecting dots. And he told me there's no two ways about it. This guy is not what he seems, and the whole situation is not what it seems. It's a setup. And I have to say that I got this from military people, military intel people that know what they're talking about. And I can also tell you that there's more than meets the eye because of the FICO and the LIBOR connection with regard to the father. But more than that, there's also something going on with regard to, as I said, the connection between the Sikh killings. And there was a lot of symbolism that was picked up. For example, James Holmes lived on the same street or something as Jim Morrison. I forget the name of the Holmes Street, right? But there was some other Jim Morrison kind of linked up Paris. I don't know, it was Paris something. You know what I'm talking about? Like his hometown, San Diego. He lived on Paris Street or something like that.
Not only that, but one of the people that were involved in the Sikh temple shooting had the name Aurora. I think that they were, I'm not sure. It was not spelled the exact same way, but basically, when that happened, I even made a video, and it actually occurred like the day that they were supposed to make this announcement at the MUFON convention. And the person, like not necessarily the pastor, but the person that presides over the congregation, he was the father of somebody, Amardeep Kalika, who was basically involved in this, UFO conspiracy theory minded people, and that they were all going to be at the Muffin convention. I'm probably mispronounced that, MUFON convention, and essentially they were going to make this big announcement. And the shooting happened earlier in the day, and they went ahead with the announcement that they were going to make at the MUFON convention, but it just didn't turn out to be that big of a deal. The thing is that my personal theory is that all of those connections are being made on purpose, and they're being made to sort of, I think, get the conspiracy theorists off the trail of the Aurora shooting, which they all knew was turning into a big, SH storm, so.
512, please turn off your radio.
Okay, we got somebody hanging on the phone here. They want to know about the girlfriend. For one thing, I've got a question here in the chat. Any thoughts about what happened to the girlfriend?
I've never heard any. I've heard John Miller on CBS mention the girlfriend, and they confirmed that he did have a girlfriend recently, but never heard anything else after that about it at all whatsoever.
Well, she's probably scared to death for her life. If she got any good advice, then she's hiding out. I can guarantee you that.
Yeah, I'm surprised they didn't have her on the news. I don't know.
I mean, this guy's been framed. It seems to me, being from Camelot, you can appreciate that I see all the signs, the danger signs, so to speak, and the mind control aspect of this with regard to he was taking part in some college experiments using, certain substances. Anything could be going on there where they're basically setting him up as a Manchurian candidate. We call a Manchurian candidate. And So now we have somebody on the line to ask you guys a question. Do you mind doing that?
Sure.
Yeah.
Go ahead, 512.
Hello. Yeah, this is Fats from Austin. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Sure.
Okay, cool. Hey, it's not so much a question, but I wanted to kind of like throw in some dots, that might actually we can connect here. For example, the Colorado Cabal and that big castle that was it Crowley's son claimed he was castrated in front of the two butches. You know what I'm talking about? That's Colorado Airport and the underground bases in Colorado. The police center.
No doubt about it. No doubt about those aspects.
Colorado fires, the Russian military landing in Colorado. So,
yeah.
I mean, so many connections here. It's like overwhelming and like smelling like a setup. I mean, we've seen setups before. We studied the setups. We've studied the setups that they've been setting up since, all the way back when. It's like, this is so painfully obvious. I just don't know, what else to call it. And yes, I do agree with the connection with the LIBOR scandal. I think that's one of the most important things, which is also connecting with the gold from China, which what I was also asked is that construction worker Chinese? Because that could not a connection for me. So anyway, just some dots, things to think about.
Yeah, definitely. In fact, in the first video, I was actually just saying, Colorado is shield capital. I mean, it's like, I think they have a lot of nuclear weapons testing grounds, nuclear weapons stored there. We know they have DUMBs, deep underground military bases there, especially underneath I think they actually just set up the main NSA facility over there. It might be NSA or CIA. And
there was also that's Utah, I think you're thinking of. But I have to say that the thing is, shootings and Manchurian candidates and all this kind of craziness, in Colorado is just famous, Yeah. It's up to be a massively violent place for some odd reason. But my understanding also, did you guys pick up on? I was told there was a psych institute in the town of Aurora.
No, I'm actually not aware of it. No, I haven't heard that.
Apparently there is. There is an organization, an institute that, it's kind of like having a mind control institute right in your own town.
I wouldn't doubt it.
That's what I was told, and I believe it checked out.
Yeah, Colorado is like, I think, a strategic location because it's in the center of continental U.S. It's right there on the cities are like right there bordering the mountain range and everything. And, I just think it's, they just picked it for a strategic location. But yeah, that was my first video. My first video was, look at this. It's like right near Denver, and we all know about the infamous Denver airport. In fact, they're actually taking James Holmes in a tunnel. I don't know how often that's done, but basically they're bringing James Holmes into the courtroom for every hearing using a tunnel, not using the prison, which would actually I don't know, but if you consider the fact that there's these deep underground military bases there, is it possible that they're just not even taking him back to the jail, that they're taking him, to some facility underground? So.
Right. At this point, it's sad to say, but his brain may be completely toast. In fact, there are people that do think he's been, I don't know if cloned is the right word, but there's a stand-in for the real James Holmes at this point.
Yeah. Some of the people who have actually gone to the hearing have actually said that he has an air of confidence, almost like he's just going along with it, and which is disconcerting to me because I'm not sure whether he knows what's going on himself. Either way,
speaking out. I don't know. I guess his lawyers told him not to say anything, but why wouldn't you just yell out in court, "I'm being set up. I'm a patsy"?
Yeah.
Well, you just got the mind control aspect. So not only that, but, there's possibly a threat to the, if you say to him, we're going to kill your mother if you open your mouth, then what do you think he's going to do?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I'm sure that there are actually lots of people, collateral damage from this operation that they literally had that sucker locked down, and I don't know how it's not spilling out, to be honest with you. And it really shows the grip that the mainstream media has because they're not touching it. They basically backed off of that sucker ASAP. So who knows what narrative they were actually going to go with this operation? But it was just I think luckily the community was so skeptical over it, even just openly on CNN. You actually had this sense that they were asking, how did he get in? Then people were intrigued by the fact that some guy with a goatee was actually propping the door open. So, it's just they ditched this story, and the if it was a gun control psyop, it backfired huge because I think the gun sales doubled right after this, and the Times did a cover. It said how guns won, and it was just like, I mean, they took a really big hit with this operation. Where it's going to go from here and what effect it's having right now, we can only speculate. It's just the most in-your-face conspiracy.
Yeah, definitely. Now there's someone in the chat. Let's see. They're asking something about the connection of Holmes on sex dating sites, Adult Friend Finder. Have you heard anything about that?
Yeah, basically a month before the shooting, he supposedly put up these pictures of himself with the orange hair. We actually started analyzing the hair and starting to wonder, like, how did it grow that long in 1 month? And what are the so these photos? It does seem to be him. There are some differences, but I'm willing to say it's him. Perhaps maybe when he first bleached his hair. But the key thing is that when he's in court, it's not just dyed orange hair. It's there's actually it looks like spray painted red hair at the very top of the head, like red paint at the top of the head. So I don't think that he actually did that to himself. I think they did that to him while he was unconscious.
Yeah, because you have Jackie Mitchell seeing him 3 days before, and he said that he had brown hair 3 days before.
Jackie Mitchell is somebody that apparently saw him at the bar, and the bar owner is refusing to actually comment on it, so it's kind of suspicious.
The owner doesn't want to admit he was in there, just for publicity, probably.
Oh, right.
Well, maybe for more than that, especially if other people can corroborate. I mean, that his hair was brown, and how to get the change. It's a weird thing to do. Obviously, makes him look more bizarre than just a normal guy. Mm-hmm. Somebody said another question here is how many of James' friends have popped up, and have they gone to other media outlets?
That's a good question because actually, none of them have. We never saw any of his close friends come up and say, "Oh yeah, I just saw that guy yesterday. We hung out." I mean, the closest we ever got was some people that saw him 6 months ago or something, near the beginning of the year. Nobody else. They had guys from high school 6 years ago, and they just didn't really say it. They just said he's a nice guy, he's funny.
Oh,
but,
well,
yeah,
they had they had his neighbor from his hometown basically saying, while keeping in contact with him. Apparently, he said towards the event, it started seeming like he was getting bullied. He felt like he was set up, that he was not capable of doing this. So that's really important too. I can't.
Yeah, he was mad. He was actually mad about it.
Yeah, I remember reading that. Just 1 second to get back, actually, to the model that you built, because again, you were doing that for a purpose, right? And I know the door thing was something you talked about, but was there any other sort of revealing aspects to that for you?
Yes. So I ended up doing this timeline essentially of the shooting, which kind of helps to show the positions of the shooter and where he was located and where he went. He actually came in and then crossed across the screen while he's firing, and then walked up, if you're looking at the theater, the left side of the stairs, which was reported by Corbin Dates' friend, who was sitting right next to him near the emergency exit. Her name was Jennifer Seeger, and basically, as he's going up the left side of the stairs, opposite of her, she's crawling out like she's going to head out the main exit. You know, imagine the theater. There's these hallways that go beside the theater out to the main lobby, and as he's going up the stairs, she's crawling out, and people are saying, "Go back, go back." He's shooting people trying to get out of the main doors. So basically, there was another shooter located in the lobby, towards the lobby exit, that was shooting people, and essentially that's why people were actually crawling back in. So if the shooter's going up the stairs at the time that she's exiting, and then there's people crawling back in from the main exit saying, go back, he's shooting people, then that suggests that, you know, there's another shooter over there. And what I'm thinking is this person that threw in that other gas can did not expect people to just haul off like bats out of hell. They saw him, at which point his reaction was, kill the people that saw me. And basically that's what's causing this backflow of people saying, get away from the main doors, there's a shooter over there. And yeah.
Okay, so right here in the chat, you put in a link here, and this is your explanation with the sort of timeline and 3D model, right?
Yeah, that's the video he was talking about right there.
Okay, because I'm putting it in one of the chats that I've got going here. I've got a chat on Camelot that, you know, you can also tap into. I have a hard time getting into the Revolution one because there's an introduction with a bunch of music and stuff. So while I'm on the air, I can't get in there. But at any rate, for the people that are listening, if you can post into they're telling me they posted into the chat of Revolution as well. And if there are any questions from the Revolution chat, please post them here in the chat for me. Our producer, Ahmed Painter, who does a great job and is always helping me out in the background. I really appreciate. So anyway, so is there any other aspects of this that you feel just have not come out that you guys want to talk about?
The manner of his arrest is kind of going under the radar. Basically, Dan Oates equivocates as to how he was arrested. You actually have like a police spokesman saying he was arrested at his car, and you've got Dan Oates kind of giving the story that there was this impersonating of a police officer going on. He said that his officers had to notice something that was non-regulation about his gas mask to actually decide that this was the shooter. So if he's wearing a riot helmet and a gas mask, and you've got this flaming red hair sticking out the back, you know, and wearing essentially riot gear when it was patrol officers that arrested him, how do you not know? You know, so that's a very strange account as to how he was arrested, because they had to notice something about his gas mask. Yeah.
Yes.
And there was also.
But was his red hair sticking out? Isn't that subject to a discussion? Because I don't know that actually that was the case.
Yeah, nobody reported the shooter having red hair sticking out. In fact, the description of the shooter by Corbin Dates said that he was a short, stocky person that looked like he could handle weapons really well. Did not think it was James Holmes, and actually, coincidentally, we have somebody who was driving along the road, or a neighbor of James Holmes, who said that before the shooting, James Holmes was running with his hair the way it was, with a person, with a white male, short and stocky, in a green shirt, running down the road with him. So, I mean, it's just so blatant.
It's crazy. It's just amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, you know, it's also... The one thing is figuring out what happened. The next thing is obviously going to the why. You know, why do they go through such, lengths to do this? It's just so crazy. And like for people are nowadays picking up on it so quickly.
I'm thinking that they just have a lot of hubris. If they manage to get away with 9/11 and probably a lot of other things that are constantly in the perpetual state of the cover-up, they thought that they could just get away with it. And the thing is that it was extremely pervasive in our minds, the whole event, because, you know, Batman's coming out. We want to go see it. Everyone wanted to see Batman, but, you know, it's immediately hitting them. Like, I can't go see Batman without worrying about being shot. So the fact that this false flag, I think, failed is, and that they don't want to touch it. They don't want to introduce this into the mainstream thought process to such an extent that they're basically kind of avoiding it in the debates. They didn't talk about it in Denver. You might say that, oh, they were just being sensitive, but to be honest with you, it's if they were actually being sensitive, they would have brought it up, because then you would have said, well, they needed to, you know, address the issue. But you know, basically, I forgot. I lost track.
I think this would have worked maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago, but it just doesn't really work anymore. It's just like too advanced, and they don't understand the internet. Like they have no clue how the internet works. I don't think they understand how like sharing and how information gets passed around nowadays. It's really fast.
That's right.
I'm sure that they hope they could. I'm sure they wish that they could take it back. If they could. I mean, it completely flopped, completely failed, and it's sad that people had to die over it.
Well, yeah, but, you know, I don't know how much you guys know about the cult, but one of the things that they do is they use symbols constantly, and Aurora itself is, I believe Aurora is the dawn or something coming of the dawn. And they're all hung up on this kind of thing. They're really into blood sacrifice, and they're into obviously mind control, etc. If they wanted to deliver a message to James Holmes's father to stop him from doing something, which is my understanding, then that's one way of doing it. It's a little extreme, you know, involving a whole theater full of people, but this is the kind of thing that goes on. If you guys can hold on 1 minute here, I guess we're going to go to a break in just a few minutes. So maybe I'll wait 1 second here. I got a sort of a secret witness here that wants to maybe take up a little time here to reveal some information. It's not to do with this subject though, but you know, so I will bring him on, you know, and I'm sorry to do this to you guys, but at this point, you know, we certainly have time to come back to you also during the show and pick up any pieces that you think really should be brought to people's attention. And again, you know, give your websites and give your, you know, any information, and we'll put that on my site. I hope you continue to follow these trails. You know, I think this is a fascinating study about what they did there. And I think this is Kerry Cassidy from Project Camelot Whistleblower Radio. I'm sorry, I'm laughing here, but wait, I don't want Thomas Brinkley. I don't want you guys to disappear. And Christian, you're doing a great job. I want you to give your URL if you have, you know, you have one, and I don't know, Christian does, and Thomas, anything you want to say. But I mean over the radio. So just go ahead and tell people so that they can find you.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So sorry. My name, or you can just search Thomas Brinkley. The URL is youtube.com. What's it called? Privation Productions. One word. Privation Productions. So if you'll search for that, you'll be able to find. And so I really did. I kind of chronicled the, you know, sort of like the history that we all went through with regard to keeping up to this incident.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay, and Christian?
I'm sorry, I was having a hard time there. I'm Christian Petersen, and make sure you check me out. If you would, subscribe to me on YouTube. It's Historical Records Vault. Historical Records, and then VLT. It's like abbreviated on YouTube, so it'd just be Historical Records VLT. Yeah, just go ahead and sub me on there and pay attention to what I got now. I try to put some good stuff on there for you guys, so yeah, thank you.
Okay, so great, and you guys, great job, and you guys can stay on the line if you want. I've just got a mystery guest here that's just joined me. This is T-Man, and some people are going to know him. He's a bit infamous on the net, but anyway, his name is T-Man. That's the name he goes by. It's like a moniker, and he is a member of the White Hats. And I'm allowed to say that much. And I have to say that we've been working on something this